What's up, everybody? This is Josh from themtgnoob.com,
And this is Chris.
and we're here to talk to you about our pre-release primer for Gatecrash. And the first thing we're going to do is just briefly review the guilds of Return to Ravnica and what we projected and how they turned out. Selesnya turned out Populate was super powerful, and Selesnya is heavily drafted. I think it's probably the top guild, and we projected it to be up there at the top. Next is Golgari. I think Golgari worked pretty well. It wasn't overdrafted, so you were able to get cards pretty quickly, and creatures ended up being significant coming back with the scavenge effect. Next was Azorius. We thought Azorius would be a little bit better than it was. It turned out to be. It's still pretty good, but best used in combination. Next is Izzet. Izzet, a lot of people think it was the worst guild to draft. I think some decks ended up being pretty strong, but you were able to wheel significant cards like Electromancers, and it ended up being pretty decent. And last we reviewed Rakdos, which ended up being a good solid guild to draft in the aggro style. Today we're going to talk about the Gatecrash guilds. Chris, I'm going to hand it off here to you.
Okay, sounds good. So last time we took your feedback and, we focused more this time on commons and uncommons and cards that you're actually going to see at your pre-release sealed end draft. So the first guild we're going to talk about is Boros. Mechanic for Boros is Battalion. You need 3 creatures to attack, and then a whole bunch of good stuff happens.
All right. And this is Orzhov.
Orzhov is your black-white guild, which is your defense and extort. It pretty much pings you 1 life at a time and tries to get there with some sweet little defense and some action off of the life-drainingness that is black and white.
Okay. Next, this is not Porridge, but it is Gruul.
Gruul, they like to smash, as you can see by the hammer. This is the green-red guild, and their mechanic is Blood Rush, which basically gives you a combat trick at instant speed for your attacking creatures that can't be countered.
Alright, next we're going to cover Simic.
Simic is the blue-green guild, which has the evolve ability, or keyword.
Right, and what that does is it puts a 1/1 counter on creatures when a creature enters the battlefield with power or toughness higher than that creature's. Alright, and last we'll cover Dimir.
Okay. Dimir has the cipher mechanic, which allows you to pretty much imprint a spell on a creature, and when that creature deals combat damage, you get to play the spell again for free.
Alright, without further ado, we're going to go to the white and red of Boros.
Okay, so in Boros, you all have your guild leaders, and they are mythics, so if you don't get one, don't go crying home to mama. Just accept the fact that they're very, very powerful. We just wanted to show you the card. This one, Aurelia, is a flying vigilance haste angel, and basically gives you an extra combat step. It's really awesome. If you open it, you're probably going to be winning if you land this puppy.
Alright, next we'll talk about the pre-release card.
Yeah, this is the Foundry Champion. It comes into play kind of like a Flame Tongue Kavu and deals some damage equal to its power, and it gets to hit a play or 2, which is a really nice finish in a aggressive Boros deck. It's also a pretty decent body. 6 is a lot, but it has the ability to fire breathe or pump its butt, so nothing wrong with that.
No, it deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control.
Oh, sorry about that, Coach.
Lots of power in there. It's a powerful card. That's what you were thinking, I'm sure. Next is the Guild Mage.
The Guild Mage it's pretty decent. I mean, it gives all your creatures 1/0 for 3 mana investment, and it puts a 1/1 soldier token with haste into play for a 4 mana investment. And late game, it's going to get better because you can make a bunch of hasty dudes and pump them up.
Alright, next is the Boros Charm.
Wow. Boros Charm, probably the best charm. Just cross your fingers and hope you get multiples of these because they're really, really good. 4 damage to target player, which is a nice finish in a Boros deck. Makes all your guys indestructible, which is insane in itself. And you can give a target creature double strike. Overall, this is probably the most solid charm.
Yeah, ridiculous. Alright, next is the key rune.
Okay, this is probably, in my opinion, and I'm sure Coach you would agree,
I do.
the worst key rune. You know, it's you're gonna play key runes for fixing, but I don't think Boros is gonna need extra creatures at the 3 slot. It doesn't really do much. There's not too many pump spells in red or white, so I would probably leave this in the board unless you're playing more mid-rangey strategy with Boros.
Alright, let's talk about some of the creatures.
Okay, so like I said before, we really wanted to focus this time on cards you would probably end up with in your pre-release pool and your your guild pack. So at uncommon here we have a 1/1 that has the keyword we spoke about, battalion, and when this attacks with 2 other creatures and itself, it gets +2/+2 and becomes a 3/3 for 1 mana. So you got to work for it a little bit. But at uncommon, if you get 1 or 2 of these, you should definitely be running them if you're in Boros.
We'll go to a 2-drop here, the Daring
Okay.
Skyjack.
Yeah, the Daring Skyjack is very, very naughty. It's a 3/1, which already at 2 mana is pretty strong, and it gets flying if you swing with 2 other creatures and himself. So a 3/1 flyer is really great for 2 mana, and a 3/1 on the ground at 2 is still just great.
Alright, at 3-drop.
This 3-drop, I think it's going to be one of the sleeper cards. It's a common, and whenever another white creature enters the battlefield, you can, under your control, you can tap target creature an opponent controls. So if you have a 1-drop and then a 2-drop and then this guy, and one of your guys has battalion, and you play a 4th creature on turn 4 that happens to be white and they're a slower deck, you're just going to smash in. It's really, really strong in my opinion. I think tapping something and getting blockers out of the way is what Boros wants to do.
Yep. Alright, next we've got a straight red card at uncommon, the Fire Fist Striker.
Yeah, this guy, we wanted to throw some red cards in there at you because we didn't want to just be all about the white part of Boros. This guy's okay. He's a 2/1 for 2, which is nothing special, as you just saw, 3/1 for 2. But he does make a creature not be able to block when the battalion trigger happens. And, that's pretty strong.
Alright, next we've got the Ember Beast, kind of reminiscent of Mog Flunkies.
Okay, the Ember Beast in itself in a vacuum is terrible if you don't have any creatures to attack with it. But when you're in Boros, you really should have some creatures to attack with this. You're basically playing an extra mana for Mog Flunkies with an extra toughness. I kind of wish it was an extra power, but I think that would be a little bit too greedy. I think this card is going to be better than expected, and most of the time I would say a good 75% at least of the time you were playing Mog Flunkies in your sealed pools in M13.
Alright. Next we're going to the wotc Halberdiers.
Yeah, thank God you said that, because that's a mouthful. I would not ever want to say that at all in my life, so thanks for saying that.
Sure.
3/2 for 2 mana, I mean, are they just forcing us to play Boros, Coach? What do you think?
I think definitely so, with the battalion keyword too. Very nice.
Yeah, I mean, getting first strike on top of everything is just wow. I mean, I wouldn't want to mess with these guys.
Me either, definitely. And at common, you're going to see some of those most likely.
Yeah.
Alright, True Fire Paladin.
True Fire Paladin is another solid multicolored 2-drop. It's a 2/2 vigilance, so, if you want it to, it could block. I don't think you're going to be wanting to block much in Boros, but if you have to, you have to. And for an investment of red and white, it gets +2/0. And for an additional investment, or you can choose, of red and white, it gets first strike. So you can hypothetically have a first striking 4/2 on, a 4/2 attacker on turn 3, or on turn 4, a 4/2 first striking attacker or defender. So pretty saucy.
Yeah, really good early drops in Boros. Alright, next is the Sky Knight Legionnaire.
Okay, this card takes flying and makes it better somehow by giving it haste. So an evasion creature with haste is just very strong. this is going to be one of those annoying cards that comes off the top late game as a haste creature and kills you late, or it might do a ton of damage early. So be prepared for this. There's not too many flyers in the format that block this really well. So I really like this card a lot.
Same. All right, and last we talked about a finisher for Boros, Massive Raid.
Yeah, Massive Raid just deals damage to target creature or player equal to the number of creatures you control. So if you play your curve out and you have a few creatures on the board, you're able to get them down low enough, kind of like Boros Charm's first mode where you deal 4 damage to them. You're hoping you just finish them with this. It is a common, so it's possible to get multiples in your pool. The only downside is if they have some sort of sweeper or they take your guys out early in combat and you're just stuck with this in hand. It's not going to be as amazing, but I'm sure that you're not going to be in that situation if you're playing Boros and you're playing it well.
Yep. All right, and last we'll just show the guild gate here, and then we'll move to black, white, which is Dimir. Or Orzhov, sorry. All right.
Okay. So, with this guild, you're getting the key word extort, which isn't on our guild leader here, but this guild leader, Coach, you want to take the name for me?
Obzidat.
Yep, Coach has just been practicing that all night. He's been scatly bebopping all night with this Obzidat Ghost Council. If you get this card and you have enough support, it probably could win games on its own. So I would be trying to play this, especially if you're in these colors already.
Yeah, I agree. I think the reason I call Orzhov Dimir is just because I love blue-black and I want it to be better. So, all right, the promo card is Treasury Thrall.
I actually like this as a promo card. Usually the promo cards are a little bit underwhelming, but I feel that this time around they did it a little bit more justice. A 4/4 for 6 is, it's par for the course, and this one has extort, and whenever it attacks, you may return target artifact, creature, or enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand. You're probably not going to have an artifact in there. You'll most likely have a creature in there, and you might even have an enchantment in there. So you get to choose which one you want, and a 4/4 could sit back and just drain if you want it to, but if you need to get aggressive and start beating phase, this is a pretty good finisher.
Yeah, allows you to replay and maybe extort for a little bit.
Yeah,
all right,
good
next
call.
is the Vizkopa Guildmage.
Okay, this for some reason reminds me of like a butterfly or a mosquito, because it's going to be pecking away at your life, and it's not fun to get bitten by a mosquito. But it hooks up with a creature, hopefully an evasive creature, gives them lifelink for 3 mana, and if you invest an additional 3 mana, or if you choose to extort and gain a little life from that, then you can make them lose that much life. So if you hit them for 2, and then you pay the second ability, and you gain 2 off that lifelink, you could drain them for 2, which is pretty strong.
Yeah, people are talking about how this card links up with Exquisite Blood in extended formats. So,
yeah.
All right, the Orzhov Charm.
Yep, this one's pretty decent. I like the second mode the most. Destroy target creature. You do lose life equal to its toughness, but it's one of the most powerful removal spells there. You also can return a target card with converted mana cost 1 or less to the from the graveyard to the battlefield. I don't really see that being relevant, especially in these color combinations. And the first mode, you get to return target creature and all auras you control attached to their owner's hand. This might be good if you have a come into play effect guy, but there aren't as many as I would like in these colors. So if I'm playing the charm, which I would say you would usually want to play all the charms, it's probably for the second mode most of the time here.
Right, and if you're pinging and gaining life, then it's not going to hurt that bad when you lose that life due to that creature's toughness. All right, last is the Orzhov Keyrune.
Okay, this Keyrune's pretty decent in my opinion. It's a 1/4. Thank goodness they didn't make it a defender. So it can block pretty well, and it has lifelink, which pairs real nice with the Guild Mage, and it does what it's supposed to do, which is block and gain you life.
All right, let's move to the bottom corner here, and we'll talk about some of the creatures. First of all is Syndic of Tithes.
Yeah, Coach, I'm going to let you take this one because you seem to have a bear boner over here.
Yeah, I mean, I just like the bear with extort. It's a relevant ability. It blocks out if you have to have it. So I just think I mean, it's decent. You don't want to play it in Boros, but, for Orzhov, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, he's decent. I could see it also being in Boros as well. He looks like he was watching the Discovery Channel and watching one of those Gold Rush shows.
Is that what that is? I think it's like, I thought it was like a sombrero. I guess it's not. All right, next
Yeah.
is the Basilica Guards.
Yeah, this is probably one of the better extort creatures. It's got a huge butt. It's a 1/4. It does have Defender, which is a little bit, annoying that you can't swing back with it later on. But it does have Extort, so it blocks really well, and it's well costed for Extort, because remember, you do have to pay a mana to activate the Extort. So if you play this and then you play another 3-mana spell, you can Extort for 1 on turn 4, and then over time it just gets better and better.
Right on. All right, next is the Kingpin's Pet.
Okay, this is just a 2/2 flyer, which seems pretty nice. I like that he has those spiked brass knuckles and he's wearing a gold chain. He's probably part of some sort of rap crew or something. What do you think about that, Coach?
Yeah, I didn't notice the knuckles till you just said that.
He's got gold teeth. I wouldn't mess with him. He's like part of Flavor Flav's posse or something. But he's got Extort, and that's pretty relevant. He's a little weak in the behind, but I think he packs a punch, as you could see from his hands, and he'll drain some life, and he'll get in there. And he's a decent finisher, believe it or not, in these colors. There aren't many that aren't mythic or rare. So a 2/2 flyer goes a long way in these colors.
All right. For the record, I don't think Flavor Flav has a crew anymore. He's got like a wheelchair. All right, 1,000 Lashes. We talked about the similarity of this card to Arrest in ways.
Yeah, it's pretty much Arrest for 1 more black mana, and it drains them for a life during their upkeep. So nothing wrong with that, except that creepy dude in the background. I don't know what he's up to, but it does not look like it's any good or any fun.
He's whipping somebody. All right. Next is the Urbis Protector. We talked about finishers a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Orzhov doesn't seem to have any great finishers that are not rare or mythic, so we were trying to see, well, how could you actually win with this deck outside of just hopefully draining their life away with Extort? And this one puts a 4/4 Angel into play as well as the little body, and this guy does bounce well with the Orzhov charm, so you can bounce him and replay him, get another Angel, etc., etc.
Okay. All right, next is Smite. Nice, cheap removal spell.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to be in those guys' shoes. Get it, Coach? You looking at the picture?
I think it's that guy. I don't think he made it.
Yeah, destroy target blocked creature. We did talk about this in Boros, which would be a good fit in there too. Any of the removal spells you're probably going to cross guilds for. If it's a solid monocolor card, it could be used in either guild. But we felt this was more of a defensive removal spell.
Maybe it's not that bad, though. Maybe this guy's just looking back there saying, somebody set a fire in my snowshoes. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's non-violent.
Yeah, maybe not.
All right, next is Killing Glare. Nice removal spell here.
Yeah, this guy's just like, ow, my eye. Like that's what I think. Like, have you ever seen Christmas Story, Coach?
Yes, I have.
You'll
shoot your eye out.
Shoot your eye out when you play Killing Glare. You should tell people that, and they hopefully will get the reference. Destroy target creature with power X or less. You're going to be able to kill most everything in this format with this card.
All right, next is the Guild Gate, and after talking about Orzhov here, we'll move to the red and green of Gruul.
So, Coach, you want to take that very long name?
How about a little Borborygmus Enraged?
Thank you, Coach. That sounds like a very, very not good erectile dysfunction. All right, so this guy who likes to smash things. If you get him, play him. He does cost 8. We'd probably like him to cost between 6 and 7, but then he'd probably be broken. 7/6 Trampler. and he just chucks lands at people's heads and kills creatures with lands, and that's just very, very saucy. And you can trample over and draw cards. It's pretty much everything you want in a guild leader, even though it's slightly expensive.
Yeah, and I think that dysfunction you're referring to, I think that's what happens. Borborygmus Enraged is what happens if it lasts longer than 4 hours.
Yeah, that's when you got to call the doctor, as those commercials tell me.
Right.
If you have a Borborygmus Enraged for more than 4 hours, call your doctor. All right, so Coach, we know I'm going to call it a rubber hook, so you might as well say it.
It's just Rubble Hulk.
Yeah, but I like calling it the other thing. So this one is showcasing the Blood Rush mechanic, which you get to discard it, and this is a really, really good Blood Rush card because it's like half price. One thing you don't want to do is punt and discard it when you're blocking, because that's a no-no. So make sure you're attacking. And this one, power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. So hypothetically, you can buff for 3, or you can buff from anything in between. You could even buff for more than 6 if you play this guy, or you could just have a giant dude, which you will have in your pool if you're going Gruul.
So a 6/6 unless you're using a key rune or something else to cast it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Skarg Guild Mage.
Okay, this one gives all your dudes trample, which is very nice. Because of the fact that he can make dudes with the extra mana you have, and he can give your larger guys trample. Just remember, for the second part of his ability, he makes a 4/4 elemental creature that's still land, so it can die, but also remember that if you tap 3 and you animate one of the tapped lands, it's not going to be able to block or attack.
All right, next is the Gruul Charm.
Okay, Gruul Charm's pretty good. Creatures without flying can't block this turn, so you can smash through the ground forces or gain control of all permanents you own. That's pretty good against Dimir because they steal things, so you might want to steal them back, hit them with a hammer. Or Gruul Charm deals 3 damage to each creature with flying. Red typically has a little bit of trouble with flying. Green, not as much when they have spiders, but this time around, there's not too many ways to deal with good flyers, so 3 damage to them is a pretty nice sweeping effect.
Yep. All right, the Gruul Key Rune. It's the 3/2 red and green beast artifact creature with trample.
Yeah, just a 3/2. It smashes, so it's nice. I mean, it has trample, so if you blood rush it, it'll trample over, so pretty good.
Okay, starting on the creatures, we've got the Disciple of the Old Ways.
Yeah, this is just a bear that can have first strike, but it's also going to be relevant with any pump spells that you throw its way, or any blood rush spells you throw its way.
All right, the Viashino Shanktail. We were trying to include some green and red creatures with the blood rush ability, and this is the red that we chose.
Yeah, this is also commonly referred to as Chris's or my mom, apparently, as Coach likes to call it. It's a 3/1 first striker for 4, which is crap. Tiny little butt. But the thing is, it does blood rush for 1 less and gives first strike, which is going to be relevant. So 3/1 and first strike is a nice little combat trick with blood rush.
Yep. All right, next, a card we thought would be played fairly often in blood rush decks, the Slaughterhorn.
Yeah, it's a 3/2 for 3, which is a little bit smaller than you would like in the toughness area, but it essentially giant growths your guy for 1 green. So you'll probably play this out. If not, later you need a combat trick. It makes a good top deck when you're so close to killing them and you just need that little extra push through.
Okay, our next card for Gruul is the Gore Clan Rampager, who's a nice little beater.
Yeah, this 4/4 is an always auto-include if you're in Gruul. I would say I would actually splash this card if I was in Boros, maybe. A 4/4 trampler that gives 4/4 and trample as the blood rush. If you're in Boros, the blood rush might not be as realistic, but I don't know. I think he's a powerhouse in Gruul and may even see some cross-promotion in Simic or Boros.
Nasty card. All right, Pit Fight.
Pit Fight is a good one. It just more or less is prey upon, but now it gives you the option to play it in red or green, and it gives you the instant speed versus the sorcery for one more colorless mana. So that's a really nice, I'd say, upgrade or buff.
Okay, next we've got another nice Gruul card, Mark for Death. Cool picture too.
Yeah, this one is very Gruul flavor-wise. Everyone roots for the little guy, but nobody bets on him, which is the flavor text. Essentially, this sorcery allows you to tap them out and then go, hey, you, come here, and then pick one of their creatures and beat the shit out of it. Excuse my language, but that's more or less what's going to happen. And it's going to be good because not only are you going to kill their guy, but you are going to get in for a ton of damage and possibly win the game.
All right, moving right along. Ground Assault.
Okay, Ground Assault deals damage to target creature equal to the number of lands you control. Early on, not so great, but late game should be able to deal with a formidable threat.
Yeah, at uncommon. It is sorcery speed, but it's removal all the same.
Yeah, but if you got a dinosaur, just throw some rocks on it, like the picture suggests.
All right. So this is the guild gate for Gruul. And let's move along to our next guild, which is green and blue, and they call it Simic. Alright, so for Simic, we've got the guild leader, Prime Speaker Zaganya, a little bit of forest, a little bit of island, and a couple other mana. Prime Speaker Zaganya enters the battlefield with a bunch of +1/+1 counters, where the number of counters is equal to the greatest power among other creatures you control. If you got a 4/4 out, comes in with 4 counters, it's a 5/5. 5/5, 5 counters, it's a 6/6, and so forth. So it's going to be a pretty sizable beater, especially if you're mixing it with Gruul. You're going to also draw cards. So you're going to draw cards equal to its power, not the number of counters. So you're going to draw a bushel of cards, have a nice big creature. It's just kind of a real game changer when you play this out. It's a big body and a bunch of card draw to support you in your evolve aspect later on. So very solid. If I pull one of these, I'd play it in a heartbeat, but of course it's mythic, nice, so it might be a little tough. Next, the promo card is the tiny little Fathom Mage.
Yeah, this one not so much. It's nice if you could protect it. It's actually really, really nice if you could protect it, but being so small and tiny, I don't think it's going to work out as much as you would like it. If I were to play this, I would probably not play it on turn 4. If I could hold up some sort of trick as well, I would play this, then have a trick at all times to protect it, because the card advantage engine that it gives you is very strong, but you got to work for it.
I'm going to talk about some of those tricks in just a minute that you could use technically to protect that. Next is the Simic Guild Mage.
Yeah, something about this artwork is just very fantastic for me. I just really like this little elf wizard. This turn, each creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on it, and you can trigger this multiple times. And you can remove a counter from a creature you control to draw a card. So, overall, I think this is the most powerful Guild Mage, Coach. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. Very strong. Alright, next, the Simic Charm.
Okay, this charm's pretty good. Looks like you're about to smash somebody with a doorknob. So nothing wrong with that. Just punch them right in the face with a doorknob with a tree on it. They won't like that. You get to have a pump spell. You get to make your dudes hexproof, and not just your dudes, but your permanents. And you get to return target creature to its owner's hand. So I think this is very Simic-like. A pump, a bounce, and some sort of protection, all wrapped up in one. What more can you ask for?
Yeah, I agree. I've talked with people who thought the Blood Rush ability was strong, and this is one of the cards that kind of hoses Blood Rush, the Simic Charm, with the bounce.
Yeah.
All right, Key Rune. Got a 2/3 green and blue crab with hexproof.
Yeah, usually when you get crabs, it's not a good thing, but this one has hexproof, so it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's just tougher to get rid of.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, nothing wrong with a little hexproof crab. Don't put any shampoo on that one; it won't like it.
All right.
For the record, I don't have crabs or never have had crabs,
Thank
but I
you
just
for.
thought I should let you know.
You seem to know a lot about them. I don't know the shampoo. All right.
Watch a lot of TV.
The Cloudfin Raptor at 1 drop.
This is a good one, not just for the limited pre-release. Some people are kind of saying this is a little bit worse version of a Delver to an extent. I think it's going to be very, very powerful. You're going to have to work for it like most of the evolved creatures, but this one overall is going to be way better than I think you think it will be. It's usually going to grow at least to a 2/3 flyer for 1 mana. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, I agree. Very strong. All right, next we've got Experiment 1.
Yeah, I'm not sure about this guy. He comes in as a 1/1. He has evolved. So let's say you play a bear after this, he becomes a 2/2, and then you can regenerate it if you remove 1/1 counters on it. So you can kind of reset the evolve on it, which might be interesting, but I don't know. I'm sure if you get it out turn 1, it's going to be really awesome, but it might not be a great late game top deck.
Yeah, I like the Raptor better than that one, personally.
Mhm.
All right, Drakewing Krasis.
Yeah, 3/1 flyer for 3 mana is really good. You would play like the Leva Sky Knight in Azorius, and this one flies and has trample. The Sky Knight's better, but this one's pretty good. A 3/1 flyer is nice. The fact that it tramples over is also very strong.
Okay, next we've got the Krakanura.
Yeah, what's up with all these creature types? Crocodile frog? Okay, sure, if you
They're
say so.
evolving. They're in the midst of an evolution.
Yeah, they're all mutants, right?
Mm,
They just eat birds. That's all they do. They just
looks like it.
turn into birds and fish and frogs and crabs and just eat each other and just do things. But this one's really good. He costs 3 mana for 1/3 with reach, so he blocks and trades with a lot of the 1 toughness flyers. He also blocks the 2/2 flyers that we saw earlier. So that's really great. But then if you evolve it, which shouldn't be hard, you just play a 2 power guy. You'll get a giant spider for 4 mana. Minus, the 1 mana, you just have to work for it a little bit. So, giant spider for 3 mana, nothing wrong with that.
Nope. Cool picture, too.
Yeah.
All right, we got another Krasis. This time he's shifty and elusive.
Okay, you're going to have a crisis on your hand because this guy is the real deal. He's 0/4 unblockable, which, wow, that's not that good. But he has evolve, and you're going to be able to get this guy, I'd say minimum up to a 3/7 unblockable in no time. Very strong. Also a great target for the Dimir Cypher cards, which we'll talk about coming up next. But I think he can get the action going and just be a huge blocker or a huge attacker if you need him.
All right, bottom row, we've got the Flux Mage. We talked about we didn't know exactly what this guy was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, he moves counters around, which is nice. You can move a counter from him onto a target creature, so during combat, if he's got a counter on him, then you can move it and finagle your way around with the counters and try to get people with some onboard tricks. I mean, probably won't work all the time, but remember, he has evolved, so he grows himself, and moving counters around allows him to reduce the amount of counters that are on him, which will keep triggering evolve for him over and over again if you play it wisely.
Yeah, and let me revise something. I said him. I don't know. I see a hint there. I may be wrong. Maybe he or she is in the process of an evolution.
Does it have boobs? Coach, did we miss the boobs?
Okay, maybe. It's not a bluster squall, but...
Not a bluster squall. They didn't hit us in the face like last time. All right, well, this card, obviously, the guy is trying to take a huge dump, and you just can't see the back. He's just like, oh,
he's gonna have he's reaching for a tree branch too. I don't know. This is gonna be a problem.
He's like, oh my god, I'm taking such a huge dump. I'm turning into a crab. But anyways, should we edit out the F in there and call it bio shit? Mind you, we're doing this at 5:11 in the morning Eastern time, so please excuse the toilet humor. Green or blue, instant, move any number of 1/1 counters from target creature onto another target creature with the same controller. So it's a double-edged sword in a good way. You can move their counters around if they're playing Simic, but you can't move them onto your guys because that would be too good. Or you can move your counters around and do some shenanigans once again.
Yeah, this is a sweet card. I'm looking forward to playing that one maybe in the pre-release.
Yeah. Me too, Coach.
All right, Hydroform.
Hydroform is a pretty good combat trick. It becomes a 3/3 flyer, and if you just have an excess land lying around, it can jump into the air and fight and do all sorts of stuff. You can also make one of those lands into a 3/3 attacker. So either way, whether you want to use it aggressively or defensively, it gives you a lot of versatility, and it's well costed.
Okay, next we've got Urban Evolution, a little bit of card draw.
Yeah, this one draws you 3 cards for 5 mana, which there's nothing wrong with that, and it gives you the bonus of being able to play an additional land this turn. So I like that one a lot because out of those 3 cards, you'll probably draw a land that will allow you to speed your mana ahead.
All right, and a nice finisher is the Sapphire Drake.
Yeah, the Sapphire Drake is just a 4/4 flyer for 6. So, just looking at those stats, it's not that amazing, but each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it has flying. So if your creatures don't fly already, they have counters on them, they'll be able to take flight and just jump over everything and smash face and hopefully win you the game out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's a massive beating.
Yeah.
Okay, and last, look at the guild gate. Nice art on that. Let's move to our last guild, which is blue and black, and finally we have reached Dimir.
Oh man, look at that dead body just floating there. That's how I feel when I think of this guild, man. I just get all sorts of depressed that I want to just throw a cloak on my head like this dude.
He's embarrassed.
Yeah, he's just like, you know what? I'm not as good as the other guys, but I could copy them. I'm kind of shapeshifter. You know how I do it. This guy's very playable. I mean, he's a 3/3 hexproof, and then he gets to steal creatures that are in the graveyard. So, I mean, nothing wrong with that. I like it. I mean, I think I'd play it if I was in these colors.
Okay, let's take a look at the promo card, the Consuming Aberration.
Yeah, I like this one too. You're never going to be guaranteed that it's going to be big enough. If you are a dedicated mill deck, this will probably be pretty large and in charge. And whenever you cast a spell, each opponent reveals cards from the top of his or her library until he or she reveals a land card, then puts those cards into his or her library. So you play a spell and hopefully it grows. Play another spell, it grows some more. Doesn't have any sort of evasion. But the good news is it'll probably be big enough that they have to trade little guys each turn for it.
Right, dumping cards in the graveyard, getting better.
Yeah, exactly. Every dead body is another power and toughness for that guy.
All right, Duskmantle Guildmage.
Okay, whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere this turn, that player loses a life, and if you pay 4, you get to put the top 2 in. So if you pay 7 mana, you get to drain them for 2 life, which is really pretty nice. And you have 2 lines of attack here. You're winning on life points, and you're winning in graveyard and milling. So that's really nice in conjunction with your pre-release card. So you should try to play these guys as a pair if possible.
Okay, let's look at the charm.
Okay, the charm that this sticks out the most is the destroy target creature with power 2 or less. I think this will be really good at killing some of the harder to deal with evolve guys before they really get going. You also have the last ability, which is the Fate Seal, which also mills, which allows you to look at their 3 cards and put 2 in the graveyard and 1 on top. So it allows you to essentially, hopefully, pull 2 of their best cards and put them in the graveyard and then give them like a land or something they don't need. And you could always counter a sorcery, which, will sometimes be relevant, but most likely not that often. I mean, there's some good sorceries in the set, but, you might use it for the second mode more, I would think.
Okay, the Dimir Keyrune. It's a 2/2 blue and black horror that is unblockable. We talked about that you could cipher onto this card.
Yeah, you could cipher onto this, but remember you have to make it active before you play the cipher spell, and then you have to activate it each turn, and it will, at least from what our understanding is, will remain ciphered, I guess, until it dies, as long as you keep activating it and swinging with it. But anything that's unblockable seems to be very powerful in Dimir because of the cipher ability, and it just is a good way to get in there for some damage that control style builds that blue and black usually play like to do.
Okay, let's take a look at some of these creatures. We've got the unblockable Death Cult Rogue, unless the opponent also has rogues.
Yeah, if they have rogues, then this guy is not great, but hopefully you can remove their rogue and get in there. This guy is more or less just the perfect cipher target, and cipher allows you to play a spell and then you get to encode it on a creature, which means that if this creature deals combat damage that has the ciphered spell on it, you get to recast the spell again, which is really good if you can bury him in card advantage. But like Coach and I both think, Dimir is probably going to be a lot of work to get a good one.
All right, let's talk about Cipher a little bit. Possible Cipher card, Hands of Binding.
Yeah, this is a good one at common. You tap target creature an opponent controls. That creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. So if you can play this and then cipher it on a smaller creature, you probably tap their guy down and then get to keep tapping a better guy down until they come up with multiple threats. It's not going to be as good against aggressive decks, but slower decks like Orzhov, it's going to be probably an all-star.
Okay, let's talk about another rogue here, the Balustrade Spy.
Yeah, this rogue is good because he flies, and any sort of evasion with cipher spells is essential to get it off the ground. If you're just sitting there with a guy that could get chumped all day, then it's really not going to be great. But the fact that he flies and he kind of does, a milling kind of deal too as well. They reveal from the library until they reveal land, then you put all those cards into the graveyard. It's a double threat, like a double whammy.
Yeah, and it decently costed too, a 2/3 flyer for 4.
It also blocks if you're in a bind.
Okay, another Cipher card, Paranoid Delusions.
This is kind of more or less going with the Dimir having multiple themes in, you want a cipher and you also want a mill. So this one is a cipher card that mills, and it mills 3 cards, and then if you get to put it on an evasion guy, you get to mill again and again and again, and it's really, really a nice way to take people out. Slow death, as they call it.
At this time in the morning, I'm pretty much having my own Paranoid Delusions.
Yeah, you've been talking to me way too long. You're probably going crazy by now.
All right, this is the White of Precinct number 6.
Yeah, he goes more or less with the mill theme. He's going to start out as a 1/1, but as you keep milling and milling and milling and hopefully binning some of their creatures, he'll end up becoming a formidable threat in no time, and he gets 1/1 for each creature card in your opponent's graveyard. So, I could see this guy eventually becoming a 4/4 for 2 or a 5/5 for 2, and being your finisher in the Dimir kind of deck.
Kind of Boneyard Worm-esque there.
A little bit.
All right, Grisly Spectacle, a little bit of removal here.
Yeah, destroy target non-artifact creature. Once again, they put cards equal to its power from the top of his or her library to his or her graveyard. So, facepalm, kill a dude, and then mill them some more.
This is when a paintball war went wrong. That's what happened here.
Yeah, he's all like, nothing to see here, nothing to see here.
All right. Next is the Guild Gate. So that wraps up our discussion of Dimir. And now we just want to quickly sum things up. First of all, I'd like to say shout out to Smaragdia before we sum up which guilds we think are best and worst to play in the pre-release. Smaragdia on deviantart.com gave us the picture background for this presentation. Also a shout out real quick to Planeswalkers Library, our generous sponsor. So, alright, here we are. We've got Boros, Orzhov, Gruul, Simic, and Dimir. What are you thinking here overall, Chris?
Yeah, well, I mean, knowing that I'm the type of player that likes to turn guys sideways, I have to say, initially I thought Gruul was going to be the way I was going. I was like, Blood Rush is going to be so fantastic. They can't counter it. They're never going to see it coming. It's going to be great. But getting a closer look at things, if I wanted to play an aggressive strategy, I would 100% play Boros. There's no way I would play Gruul over Boros, and I think if you're lucky enough, you could probably splash at least some of the red Blood Rush cards into Boros and make it that much more powerful.
Yeah, and I think for me, and we talked about this, it would be either Boros or Simic. I think the evolved mechanic is going to be pretty broken in the sealed environment. Orzhov is intriguing with the pinging, but for me, I think I'm going Simic.
Yeah, Simic also is just really ridiculously strong. I mean, looking at the cards, I was like, oh, and this card's good. Oh, and this card's good. And oh, this card's good. And it was very hard for me to find cards that I wouldn't play in a Simic deck. But I think one thing we're both in agreement on is we're staying clear of Dimir.
Yeah, I think so. All right, guys, that concludes our presentation for the Gatecrash pre-release primer. Chris, any last words?
Yeah, please visit our awesome website, themtgnoob.com, and good luck at the pre-release this weekend.